what point did that word go through your head, my son's been kidnapped?
It's tough for even me to think Bruna had kidnapped our own child. Are you going to eat the camera?
It was almost impossible to say out loud. David Goldman's wife had not only left him, she'd abducted their son.
You ran off to Brazil with Sean.
I ran off to Brazil with Sean because I worked there and I told you that I want to separate. I knew you were never going to give me the separation, that's why.
My own mommy.
Bruna had never even given David a chance. And although her parents denied knowing anything about her escape plan, David and his friends suspected they were involved. They'd been in New Jersey visiting for weeks, and Bruna's mother even helped her pack.
Bruna, I don't think, was strong enough to ever have done this on her own. This was a family doing.
To David's friend Bobby Chang, it seemed heartless. David had loved Bruna's parents as if they were his own.
Bruna's father said to me, I can't remember how many times, David is like my son, and he's like my own blood.
Say hello.
David felt betrayed, and when Bruna got a Brazilian judge to give her temporary custody of Sean, he was furious. 2 months after she left, he filed a civil suit in New Jersey against Bruna and her parents, getting an order demanding Sean be returned to the United States within 48 hours, and freezing every U.S. asset Bruna's family owned, including a beach condo on the Jersey shore.
That allowed us to seize the property and the bank accounts in the hopes that it would place pressure on Bruna and her family to return and comply with the order.
But Bruna just ignored the court order, and then the death threat started.
There was a man's voice telling me that they know where I live, they know where I am, prepare to die. It was very alarming. Very alarming.
Gene Quigley was one of the first people David called.
The people on the other line had heavy accents. He was very scared. When he went outside, there was a lit cigarette butt that was on his doorstep.
Terrified, David contacted the FBI, which advised him to leave his house for a week. By the time he returned, the calls stopped.
You never found out who made those calls?
No, but they were using my Nextel Direct Connect, which only Bruna had the number.
David, I bet there are people who watch this interview and say, there's got to be something he's not saying. There's got to be some skeleton in that closet. There's got to be a reason why this woman would go to Brazil, take her child, your child, and turn around, call you, and say, you're out of my life.
Show me. Find it.
The only justification Bruna had would have been if Dave was a violent man, if he was an alcoholic, not a good father, not a good husband. Dave was none of those things.
In all of her court documents and everything, she never claimed that he was a bad dad or an abusive anything. She never spoke negatively about him.
There was nothing, not even one allegation of wrongdoing. Even as Bruna threatened to take his son away forever, she still kept telling David he was a great dad.
You're a wonderful dad, and I couldn't have anyone better, and I'm very glad we had sons together, and I'm very glad you were his father.
In virtually every other case I've had, I can say, look, there are two sides to this story. But I can honestly say there really isn't another side to this story.
16 long months after Bruna abducted Sean, David made his first trip to Brazil. The courts were finally responding to his plea for help under the Hague Convention, and David was hoping to bring his son home. But to his shock, Brazil decided so much time had passed, Sean should stay put.
The Brazilian courts said, yes, we even see that he's been held here unlawfully. But now, because unfortunately it took us a year to get to this case, he's settled with the mother, so he belongs here.
2 arduous years of appeals in Brazilian courts followed. 2 years of heartache as a loving dad missed out on his son's birthdays, his milestones, his sweet smiles and embraces. But it was futile. Each decision was in Bruna's favor.
It's shocking, really.
Mark DeAngelis met David on a fishing outing just weeks after Bruna left.
Probably no more than 30 minutes into the trip, David pulled me aside and apologized that he was going through a very difficult time pouring his heart out to us. And I just remember being very taken aback by the whole thing.
Mark became a staunch ally of David's. Although he's a finance guy, not a lawyer, He did meticulous research, trying to comprehend a legal process he calls infuriating.
One unfavorable ruling after another, one unfavorable outcome after another, almost as if the Brazilian judicial process seemed to work backwards.
What's more, despite traveling to Brazil for each ruling, David never once saw Sean. And he says Bruna and her family soon cut off all contact.
Hello? That was my father-in-law. Hung up on me, too. They slammed the phone down on me. They tried to cut all communication. And they could, because they had Sean.
The audacity of her and her family to think he would just accept their conditions and let them take his son from him. It's ludicrous.
Yet Bruna seemed oblivious to David's pain, moving on with her life as if he'd never even existed. She opened a children's boutique in Ipanema, the same place that inspired that tune David used to sing about her. Then, even though she was still legally married in the U.S., she got a Brazilian divorce. And 3 years after leaving David, Bruna married a Brazilian lawyer named João Paulo Lindsay Silva, who, along with his father, specializes in, of all things, family law.
Their practice is fighting against international child abduction. His father travels around to different countries lecturing on the Hague Convention and children's rights. He's even written an article about how important a father is in the child's life. You can't make this up.
It was a bitterly ironic twist in David's nightmarish saga, one that was about to take a shocking, devastating turn.
The hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I couldn't believe it.
Coming up, a twist of fate no one saw coming. Could the fight over Sean actually be over?
Jaw dropped to the ground, and I thought, oh my God, I couldn't believe it.
When Fighting for Sean continues.